Good morning. Happy hump day. It is Wednesday. Lauren Jabara here with Mark Zino. College football week 4 crossed off. NFL week 3 crossed off. How the heck are you, Zino? I haven't seen you in like 5 days. Missed ya.
I know. There's some withdrawal there. I get it. I myself am in J-bar withdrawal. So, I understand. You and I simpatico.
You, me, simpatico. We got a lot to talk about today. We have midweek line movement. We have Amin coming on to chat NFL. So much to get into. First of all, your overall takeaway, if you could describe the NFL after 3 weeks in 1 or 2 words, what would it be? Putting you on the spot.
Underdogs barking. I mean, a lot of surprising things have happened through 3 weeks. I think when you look at some of the more surprising stories, everybody will point to the Jaguars, but I look at their defense more than anything else. I know Trevor Lawrence continues to get all the notoriety, but that's the best rush defense in the NFL through 3 weeks. So it's money well spent for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You continue to look at other teams across the league. The Detroit Lions continue to surprise people. Falcons are 3-0 against the spread. These are teams that have been perpetual underdogs for the last couple of years, and they continue to to win games and surprise people. So, yeah, the underdogs seem to be ruling the roost here early on.
Yeah, underdogs, barking. The dogs are barking, baby. I will say, you know me, I love a good underdog. I love a good plus money bet. I love the Jags, and I like Trevor Lawrence. And I know that they're the best team in the AFC South. I said this to Jared on Monday. I feel like they're a little bit of an overreaction at this point. I know Doug Peterson does a really, really good job of putting Lawrence in spots to find success. The offense is kind of built to his strength, and Christian Kirk has been playing well. They could be a wild card spot. They did really well on defense against the Colts and Chargers. They held those two teams to 10 combined points. But I really think that this week against the Eagles, we're going to see what the Jacksonville Jaguars are made of. I'm really curious to see how things play out. And the same with the Raiders. I mean, they're like pushing the fire alarm button in Vegas right now. 0-3, the only team in the NFL that is 0-3 this season. It's really crazy when you think about it. But let's look at some of these midweek line movements that we have heading into week 4. One of them being the Chargers taking on the Texans. That line moved from Texans being 6.5 point underdogs to 4.5 point underdogs. The Chargers were embarrassed last week by the team we were just talking about, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They didn't lose because of injuries. They lost because they were unprepared, and the Jags were able to take advantage of it. But now the injuries are piling up for them, right? Rashawn Slater, Jalen Guyton, Joey Bosa, all going to be out probably this week. Justin Herbert still nursing his McRib. I don't know if he's going to have another Toradol shot heading into this weekend. And I know the Texans lost to the Bears, but this line move for me has more to do with the Chargers' injuries and Justin Herbert also nursing his rib back to full strength than it does with the Texans and what they've done through 3 weeks, right?
No, 100%. I mean, this is more about the Chargers injury report than anything else at this point in time. Justin Herbert technically isn't on the injury report yet, so we'll see how that develops throughout the rest of the week. But, even at 6.5, even at 4.5, this looked like a good spot for the Texans. I've been telling everybody all season long the Texans are going to be a lot more competitive than anybody is giving them credit for. And this is a team right now that when you have the Chargers flying cross-country or at least halfway across the country for a 12 o'clock kick, local time, 1 o'clock East Coast time, that's always a bad spot. So, yeah, I'm not I don't have a ton of confidence in the Chargers one way or another.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this 1-2 Chargers team comes out this week against the Texans. They need another win in the win column. They need to start moving up in the division. They need to start making an impact. And I know it's early in the season, but I feel like now everything kind of levels out. Like we talked about week 1, teams come out, they're excited, we get overreactions. Week 2, things level out a little bit more. Week 3, we kind of see the consistency of what this team is made of. Well, if that's what the Raiders are made of after 3 weeks, and the 1-2 Chargers are playing like they are right now, maybe not living up to expectations that people set for them in the offseason. The Chargers have all of the pieces. How are they going to put it together now heading into week 4? Another line move, the total in the Browns-Falcons game. You talk about the Falcons covering the spread every single week through the last 3 weeks. This total has gone up 3 points, ticked up a little bit from 46.5 to 49.5. Falcons coming off of their first win of the season. The offense looked good on the ground. And the Browns are looking like they're a little bit more comfortable with Jacoby Brissett under center. They have had a long week after playing in Thursday Night Football. Now they're the top of the AFC North. Why do you think we've seen this total tick up 3 points like the way that we did?
I mean, could it be because of Miles Garrett getting into a car accident and his status being uncertain? If he's not in, there's a huge offensive lift for the Falcons not to have to deal with one of the best pass rushers in the NFL bearing down on.
How bad was that car accident? How bad was it?
Well, the car was really bad. Thankfully, Miles Garrett looks like he's going to be okay, and the person who's in the car with him was, non-life-threatening injuries, and everybody's out of the hospital. But yeah, that's a car that didn't look like it was somebody shouldn't have walked out of that thing all that easily when it was all said and done. So, and again, maybe some of this is that the Falcons offense is starting to prove itself to be a little bit more competent. Arthur Smith, the former OC in Tennessee, now taking over in his second year as Falcons head coach, has really started to show you some strides and dividends. Cordero Patterson, third leading rusher in the NFL, who had that on their bingo card? Not anybody else. Falcons fifth rushing attack in the NFL after finishing like dead last or bottom five for like the last 5. I mean, so all these things put together, you're starting to look at two teams. And again, the Falcons defense probably still has some work to do. They almost did, without that interception, they probably give up 30 to Seattle last week. So the idea that points can be scored this week isn't that foreign.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And also the Falcons rush defense ranks 28th overall in rush DVOA. The Browns have a strong rushing attack, especially with a guy like Nick Chubb. That could be part of the reason as well. And the Falcons offense is kind of going right now. Like, they're looking pretty good. They're also looking good on the ground. So who knows? But this total is now set just under 50. So we're seeing that movement there. Then let's take it to the Bills Ravens. This is a battle of two, in my opinion, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The Bills are going to come out hungry after losing last minute to the Dolphins, which, by the way, can we just talk about the Dolphins for a second? Tua, they're really good. What's going on in Miami right now?
Okay, we need to stop this narrative about the Dolphins offense. Look, they scored 14 offensive points against a good defense in the Patriots, and they scored 21 offensive points against a good defense in Buffalo. They had only scored 14 offensive points through 3 quarters against the Ravens, and it's 1 quarter that is skewing the view of this Dolphins offense. If they don't score 28 points in the 4th quarter of that game, they are a statistically below average offense through the other 11 quarters of football. Now, I'm not taking away the 1 quarter, but you got to pump the brakes a little bit on what you're watching. It's not like Tua threw for 3 yards each of these 3 weeks. No, he was very limited in the other 11 quarters of football. So I'm still hitting pause on the Dolphins offense. I think their defense is good, but I'm hitting pause on the Dolphins offense is something that we really need to, be worried about yet until I see a little bit more.
So maybe a little bit of an overreaction through 3 weeks at this point.
So. You're going to find out this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Bills, though, I feel so bad because obviously they're coming into this season being the best team in the NFL, odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl. They are dealing with so many injuries right now on both sides of the ball. Now they're going to miss Tommy Doyle for the rest of the season. He tore his ACL. Ryan Bates is in concussion protocol. I know he's day by day, but that's 2 starting offensive linemen. The Bills' defense is already banged up. They're missing all 4 starters in the backfield at this point. I don't know if anyone else is going to come off the injury list for this week. I know a couple of the guys are day-to-day. But this total is ticked down about 3.5 points, or 55 to 51.5. Is this due to the Bills' injuries, or why do you see this total ticking down a little bit the way it is?
You almost never see opening totals this high. And this feels just like sharp money going, you know what? Games don't get into the 60s. They just don't do it all that often in the NFL. This isn't college football. And my guess is, without having done any research on this particular game, that it's sharp money who's just going against a number that's set way too high. It just is. And despite the fact that, is it possible for both these teams to score 30? Yeah, but I don't think so because Buffalo Bills defense is really good. It's not good. The Ravens pass defense. By the way, I think the Bills are going to pace this Ravens team. The Ravens have the worst pass defense in the NFL. What do the Buffalo Bills do better than anybody else in football? Throw it. And they throw it to everyone all over the place. So this is a matchup nightmare for the Baltimore Ravens defensively.
I'm interested to see how this is going to go. Do you think that these Bills injuries are going to be as big of an impact on this team as a lot of people are making it out to be in the media right now? Because right now he's missing 2 of his starting offensive linemen, and they're missing all 4 guys in the backfield. They're playing guys that don't have very much starting experience at this point. But you still have Josh Allen, and you still have Von Miller. So.
Right. Well, that's the point. If there was any quarterback who's equipped to deal with missing offensive linemen and running around and making plays, Josh Allen would be right at the top of that list.
Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens heading into week 4. Things kind of balance out. Speaking of week 4, let's skip ahead to week 5 in college football. I know we're having Amin on in a second when he gets here to chat NFL. He called the Commanders-Eagles game last week. He's calling the Colts-Titans game this weekend. But let's get into some college football games heading into week 5, because there's a lot of key games going on right now. One of them being Kentucky. And I asked Jared this the other day. Are they going to win their division? Is Kentucky going to win? I don't know. They're taking on Ole Miss. Cross-division SEC rivals going head-to-head, both undefeated, both coming off of close wins against unranked non-conference opponents. Will Levis is really good. His arm is NFL caliber. He just needs to tune in a little bit to some of the throws that he's making. That's going to test Ole Miss though, because I think their secondary isn't that great at this point. But the line is what's the big issue for this team. They allowed 5 sacks to Northern Illinois. 5. Chris Rodriguez back in this game for the Wildcats on the ground, but again, can the O open up enough necessary gaps for him? It's his first game back after missing 4 weeks. Who do you think finishes on top of this game, Zeno?
I like Kentucky to cover the number. They may win the game outright too.
This is the number.
Yeah, this is an Ole Miss defense that, while they were great against teams from the MAC like Ball State and or Central Arkansas and Troy, they're not playing those level of opponents right now at this point in time. They're playing one of the best defenses in the SEC and one of the best defenses in the entire country when you're talking about the Kentucky Wildcats. It's going to be a difficult day for Ole Miss to be able to score at will the way they have against some other opponents. And particularly, if you look at last week against Tulsa, whose defense is very average, this was an Ole Miss team that ran away with things in the first half and scored 35 points. You know how many points they put up in the second half? 0. Not a single one. So, I mean, it's, that was a little disconcerting to me. But I think Kentucky is the type of team that's going to grind this pace way down. You get Chris Rodriguez back. And I know you talked about the offensive line, but he's going to be a huge lift for them. And with that said, I like the under here. I like Kentucky getting the points. Ole Miss may steal a win. And I stress steal a win because Kentucky is the better team. Even though they're home, Ole Miss may steal a win here, but I don't think they cover this number.
Yeah, that spread right now is set at 6.5. The total is 54.5. 2 good defenses and not very good O-line. It'll be interesting to see how this SEC matchup plays out. Speaking of the SEC, Bama taking on Arkansas, the game that everyone's talking about, battle of the top 225 SEC teams. Arkansas dropped last weekend's game to Texas A&M. Perfect through 4 weeks, 3 big wins, and then a 1-point win in week 1 against Texas. Arkansas almost upset Bama last year. But Bama right now on a 14-game win streak. Does Arkansas upset Bama this year? Because right now the spread is set at 17.5. So sharps do not think, and odds makers do not think that this game is going to be remotely close.
And I don't really care if it is, but I do. If you get 17.5 out there, it's an automatic buy point for me on Arkansas based off the alone. Now, Arkansas could beat Alabama because this is not the same Alabama team we're used to seeing, and the wide receivers are not to the level of what Alabama has had in years past, and that's making life a little bit difficult for Bryce Young. It's changed that offense a little bit, and if they got anything from the Texas game, it's just that if you can cover well, you're going to make life difficult for Bryce Young, and that's enough. This could be a physical team, a physical game from Arkansas. I think they want to rebound from last week in a game that they shouldn't have lost to Texas A&M. Do they have a chance to win this thing? Yes, but I really like them to cover the 17 or 17.5.
You talked about physicality. That's how NC State plays. They're going to Clemson this weekend. Clemson hasn't lost at home since 2016. I think it's like a crazy 30-plus game home winning streak. But this is the battle of the two of the best teams in the ACC, especially in the Atlantic Division, of course. The Wolfpack have their eyes set on 5-0 start since 2018. Clemson has gone 5-0 to start to start 6 of the last 7 seasons. I was actually on the sidelines last weekend for NC State. They took on UConn. They absolutely clobbered UConn, but it was a week that could have been a look-ahead week, and they were able to improve on what they wanted to work on. They wanted to work on limiting penalties, having explosive plays. Demi Sumo Karngbae, one of the best running backs, in my opinion, in the NCAA football at this point. Who takes this game? Right now, the spread, Clemson laying 6.5 points. The total pretty low, set at 40, and I think that has to do with Hurricane Ian that's coming in. Maybe we see some big winds, a lot of rain. Who knows how that's going to affect it? Meteorologist Lauren, meteorologists, again, are not paid on accuracy. But at the same time, these are 2 of the best teams in the ACC going head-to-head. Does Clemson cover the spread at home?
Tough to say. I was disconcerted by Clemson's defense being scored upon as easily as they were against Wake Forest. Now, Sam Hartman and Wake Forest, one of the better offenses in the country. I don't know that Devin Leary and the Wolfpack meet that same level. What the Wolfpack do is, I said do. What they do really well is play defense and don't give up a lot of points. So DJ Uiagalelei is going to have a very, very tough time getting this Clemson offense into the end zone. And that, for me, combined with the weather and everything else, leads me to lean on the NC State side. But this is a huge revenge game from last year for Clemson as they lost in Raleigh in double overtime to this NC State team. So I probably think Clemson still sneaks out of here with a field goal win, but I would lean on the side of the NC State Wolfpack in the points.
I know, and I saw last week Wake Forest is 105th in passing defense, and DJU was struggling against that at that point. They took the game to double overtime. Clemson rushes the field, and you mentioned just the physicality that NC State plays with on defense. That's their strength. Their linebacking core is finally back together. All 3 of those guys healthy after like 2 years, and the last 2 weeks we saw what they were able to do. They are so extremely solid. They're fun to watch, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on DJU. So I think that's the game this week that I'm most excited to watch. Battle of 2 ACC teams, something I thought I would never say is I'm most excited to watch an ACC game, but I'm really pumped about it. I think it's going to be a fun one. I'm also excited for the NFL Week 4 slate. So let's take it from boys to men. Boys to men, go from college football to NFL, bringing Adam and Amin to chat Week 4, some of the line movements that we've been seeing. He's the NFL play-by-play and Chicago Bulls play-by-play announcer. Adam, how the heck are you? It's good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. How's the start of the season going for you?
It's going great, LJ. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. Mark, as always, my friend, it's a pleasure to see you guys and great to talk with you. I'm excited for what we've seen so far. A lot of parity. Not anybody really establishing themselves outside of maybe 1 or 2 teams, and I know Mark's got questions about at least one of them. So I'm excited. This is how this gotten going.
Yeah, I mean, talking about 1 of the 2 of those teams, the Eagles. You called last week between the Commanders and the Eagles. Are they the real deal? Is Jalen Hurts the real deal? Because you look at their stats, and they outscore teams incredibly in the second quarter, but they're not able to score in the first, third, and fourth at this point. Is this like 3-0 Eagles team as good as people think that they are?
I can understand looking at those numbers and kind of feeling like, well, why aren't they kind of taking the whole game over? I think part of it too, they've gotten off to great starts defensively over the course of the first few games. Take out the first game against Detroit where they gave up too many explosive plays. The last 2 weeks they've been outstanding defensively. They had a great game plan against Justin Jefferson, Minnesota. Darius Slay shut him down. And they did an excellent job against the Washington team that leaves a lot to be desired offensively, but they've had 3 or 4 good stretches in their first couple of games. So to shut those 2 teams down, basically take out what I think is one of the better wide receiving cores in the NFL. Washington's wide receiving group is really good. Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin. They basically got taken out of the game. And Philadelphia hasn't had to do a whole lot the last couple of weeks in the second half offensively other than run the ball and possess it. So I think that's part of the reason why they're kind of skewed. But the second quarter has been the big quarter offensively. I think Jalen Hurts is growing very quickly in this offense. I think a year in this iteration of the system where Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen kind of changed things up offensively in the second half of last year's season. They became more of a run-heavy team. So they had that established. Their run game is going to be good. Their quarterback run game is going to be good, I think, all season long. The addition of A.J. Brown has completely changed this offense because now you have legitimate 2 1A type receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think they have a really good secondary cast. I think their offensive line, when healthy, which they have been, is one of the 3 or 4 best offensive lines in the league. And defensively, they get to the quarterback without needing to bring an extra guy. Usually these 4-man rushes, maybe a 5th guy, but usually these 4-man rushes are getting to the quarterbacks, and they have 2 of the better in the league right now in James Bradbury and Darius Slay. So talent-wise, they have every portion of their game filled with high-quality players, and I think they are the real deal. Now, their schedule is about to get tougher. Jacksonville's interesting offensively. I don't know if it's great, but they're interesting, and they definitely had some flashes already this year. So I think the test will get a little harder. They'll finally play a playoff team from last year in Arizona that has obviously not looked great in the first few weeks. They'll play Dallas, which has had some questions. Maybe Dak will be back by that point in week 6. But their schedule hasn't been great, but they've played really well against the schedule. So based off those parameters, they are the best team in the NFC. And I think talent-wise, their ceiling is the highest of any team in the NFC.
And you mentioned the Jaguars, who the Eagles are going to play this week, off to a good start. And again, everybody keeps pointing to Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. Like, I am not buying Doug Peterson stock at all. Like, not now, not ever, not anytime soon. But what I will buy is the Jacksonville defense, which has the best rush defense in the NFL. They've given up the second fewest points of anybody in the AFC, and that helps when you post a shutout in 3 weeks. But still, their defense, they put a lot of money into that defensive side of the ball, Adam, and it's paid dividends for them through 3 weeks.
And they spent the number 1 pick up front, right, to have Trayvon Walker play the way he's played. He's played very well. There have been 2 games out of the 3 where I feel like he's flashed multiple times, and he's going to be a problem for any offensive line. That will be a really fun matchup. That's why I do think Philadelphia has an advantage, because that front's been really good. But focusing in on Jacksonville, their offense has had good moments. I think Robinson's been a key. Remember last year when Robinson just wasn't involved in the offense for whatever reason, and even guys like Trevor Lawrence were saying, why aren't we utilizing this chess piece that we have that can do a lot of different things, either as a receiver or out of the backfield as a runner? And I think they have some talent. Their offensive line has gotten better. They tried to put some stock into that the last few seasons, despite all the personnel changes. But their defense has won them games. They held Indianapolis to nothing in week 2. I thought they did excellent work. Granted, against an injured, not 100% Justin Herbert, but that's a really good Chargers offense that had their healthy offensive lineman Rashawn Slater until this past week. Obviously, that's a big blow to Los Angeles. But I think Jacksonville is interesting. I'm not fully convinced on them yet. I'm with you, Mark, on that. But I do feel like there's a lot there for this Jaguars team to build off of. Their schedule is going to be fairly easy in the division. The AFC South is probably not as strong as maybe it has been in years past when Indianapolis and Tennessee were really at the forefront of it. There's a lot of questions about those 2 teams right now. So I think that's an open division, and Jacksonville's put itself into a very good position to be competitive. I don't know if it'll come up young, but it is an upgrade over Urban Meyer in terms of NFL head coaching experience. So I think that has certainly helped what they're trying to do with a lot of young players.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he has as many wins as Urban Meyer does as a head coach for Jacksonville. So it is pretty interesting to see how that's played out through 3 weeks. A team that I'm extremely high on right now is the Miami Dolphins. Let's head a little bit further south in Florida. Mike McDaniel, and call this an overreaction, but could be the coach of the year at this point. They look really good on both sides of the ball. And what I like about through 3 weeks, we've seen them win in 3 different ways, right? Like week 1, it was a super physical game. Week 2, a massive 4th quarter comeback for the offense when maybe the defense wasn't playing as well as they could have. And then week 3, the defense held the Bills to a 50% red zone conversion rate. They didn't allow them to score a touchdown in the second half. And that's the Buffalo Bills that we're talking about. Are the Dolphins the real deal right now at 3-0? Because people were throwing a lot of hate on Tua, and then people were throwing a lot of hate on Tyreek Hill and his offseason move as well.
I heard you guys talking about this, and I saw Mark's face, Rob, as soon as you mentioned the Miami Dolphins. So let me say this. I think you're both right for separate reasons. I think there is a lot more to be desired from Miami, because offensively they've had way too many lulls offensively. Like, they had that incredible 4th quarter against Baltimore. That's a great comeback. That was really impressive going in that quarter alone. But there is something to be said about consistency. And the most consistent teams are typically the ones that end up winning 12 or 13 games. And if that's where the Dolphins want to end up, which so far based off the first 3 weeks, they played well enough to get to a point where they could be a 13-win team. Then they're going to have to be a little bit more consistent offensively. But defensively, their secondary has always been good. They've been generally pretty good the last 5 years. Howard on the back end, he's kind of the trigger man of all that. So we've always kind of had a sense that there's enough talent there to be able to shut down some good offensive teams, and they were able to do that against Buffalo. That's huge. So, Lauren, I agree with you. Yeah, if you had to give me a vote right now for AFC Coach of the Year, it's easy to say, oh, look at the 3-0 team. But you're right. They've won in different ways. They've won in comeback fashion. They've been able to pull off mistakes. The butt punt is obviously a really funny thing to do, but that's a big mistake that they had to overcome in that game, and they were able to do it. To their credit, they've been able to win games that maybe they were not projected to win. Their probability was low at various points. So you give them credit for that, and they've earned the right to be 3-0. They've earned the right to get this praise, and Tua has had really, really good stretches. If they can be more consistent, that's when you start talking about their ability to win the AFC East, especially with a win over Buffalo already. So I think it's a mixture of both things. That's the tendency we have anyway 3 weeks into an NFL season, because we're tasked with picking who is the best team, and we have to project forward. So Miami's definitely there, but to stay there, they've got to be a little bit more consistent, in particular on the offense.
Yeah, and you're looking at a team that has the second worst run game in the NFL at just 64 yards per game. That's not sustainable to win games that way. And, oh, by the way, if Josh Allen doesn't short arm a pass at the goal line, which you never see him do, they don't win that game, period. So assist to the Miami Heat, not the basketball team, the actual weather that made the entire Buffalo Bills team and not able to complete it.
Speaking of Miami Heat, I think every team in the East got better except for the Miami Heat. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in NBA season. That's either here or there. I'm really excited for NBA season to start. Adam, I know we're going to refresh your page for a second, so I think we get a little bit better audio. We'll let you do that, and then I know, Zeno, you want to ask him about the Raiders in 1 second. But I'm so excited for NBA season right around the corner, but at the same time, we're still in NFL Week 4. Zeno, please ask about the Raiders, because what the heck is going on in Vegas? Are people spending too much time?
I picked the Raiders to win the AFC West.
I think a lot of us did.
I suck. And look, it's still a possibility thanks to the Indianapolis Colts, right? Like the Colts beating the Chiefs. And the Chiefs at this point through 3 weeks look like they're going to get division just because of sheer attrition, and nobody else is any good. Daniel Hackett stinks as a head coach. Russell Wilson looks washed up. The Chargers are more hurt than anybody in the league, and they're going to charge it regardless. And Josh McDaniels has ruined what should have been one of the top 5 offenses in the NFL this year. That said, look, the Raiders have lost 3 games, I think, by a combined, 11 points? Like, it's that small of a margin where they could literally be 3-0. But and the problem is, Adam, they've gotten off to bad starts in all 3 at the beginning of their games, and the offense should be better given the talent that they have and the coach that they have. So is this just a coaching issue for you that they're 0-3, or is there something more going on?
No, I think there's scheme issues right now with what the Raiders are doing, especially how they start off games. They can't seem to convert third downs when they really need to. And it's frustrating because you have the weapon, the presumed weapon of bringing arguably one of the 3 best receivers in the league in Davante Adams over to join in with his old college buddy and a guy that he seemingly has a lot of chemistry with. And I don't doubt that that's the case, but we haven't seen it come to fruition just yet. Now, can you recover from an 0-3 start? Yeah, of course, especially when you lost close games and you are playing in a division, just like we talked about with the AFC South. The AFC West isn't impressing anybody in the first few weeks, and Kansas City is the best based on track record, and I think attrition is a good word for it. The Chargers are going to be hurt. Nathaniel Hackett's got a lot of things to work out. They took advantage of a beaten up and bad San Francisco offense the other night to get a victory. And I'm not sure where the Raiders need to go from here. Do they need to establish the running game a little bit more and give Derek Carr a little bit of a breather? Do they need to add max protect players and basically have 4 guys in a pattern and have 6-man protections, or just three-man routes and try to let Davante Adams work? Because that's what we saw in Green Bay at times. Aaron Rodgers, when he would get beat up because of his offensive line injuries, they would just max protect and go, all right, Davante, go save us. And that's oftentimes what we saw from their offense when they were dealing with injuries. So I wonder what this offense is going to look like. But the track record for Josh McDaniels as a head coach hasn't been particularly good. Going back to even this past stint as the New England offensive coordinator before that in Denver, it wasn't a good run. And there are going to be questions about him looming going forward and about his track record as a head coach. Can he formulate an offense? Yeah, we've seen that often in his career. But can you be the CEO of a team? Can you be a great manager of not only one phase of the team, but all three phases of the team? And I don't think any of those phases has been consistent enough for the Raiders to be competitive. And they can be competitive because that division is not going to be, I don't think, overly. I don't think it's going to be overly competitive over the course of the season. Kansas City is going to end up being what they are. They're going to be a double-digit win team, even if they only win 10 or 11 games. And the rest of that division is trying to play.
Speaking of
Adam,
the Chiefs, that was an
go ahead.
Oh, you could go. I was going to say, speaking of the Chiefs, that was an overreaction last week. I feel like people saw the Bills lose, people saw the Chiefs lose, and the way that the Chiefs lost, it wasn't necessarily the Colts beating the Chiefs. It was the Chiefs' special teams beating the Chiefs because their special teams were brutal, like absolutely brutal. Do we overreact for the two of the best teams in the NFL after week 3 when they both lose, weird games, and now the Bills are pretty injured? They're missing like 2 of their starting O-linemen, and then their 4 starters in their secondary are most likely going to be out this week too. Do we overreact for either of these teams, or is it just like, hey, it's a slip up after week 3, teams are getting their footing underneath them, they're going to be fine?
It feels more like the latter, LJ. I think when you have good track records, that's when you get the benefit of the doubt. That's why we give the benefit of the doubt to Kansas City, because they've earned it. It's why we give the benefit of the doubt to Tampa Bay. They've earned it because they have the personnel and they've got a track record and they've got a quarterback, and that always helps. Anytime you have a quarterback, if you've got one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the league, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Buffalo has it, Tampa Bay has it, Kansas City has that, and I don't think anybody in those locker rooms is hitting the panic button by any means. There's too much experience. They've seen too much, and again, if you're going to lose 4 games in a 17-game schedule, they got to come somewhere, right? If you're going to go 13-4, by 3 games. They have to come from somewhere, and it's okay to they're still losing to teams that I understand Kansas City fell apart, but you can't do anything about a Harrison Butker injury like that. That kills you, and I've seen that happen to teams. They're so reliant too on hit like that. That gives you a little bit of a sense of how impactful certain special teams players are, whether it's return men or whether it's kickers or punters. And in this case, Butker is one of the 5 best kickers in the league. And when you lose that, that affects what you can do offensively, and that affects how your play calling goes, and that affects your ranges, and that affects what your playbook looks like from the 40 and from the 30. So I think that had more to do with it than anything else. I do think the Colts defense is better than maybe it showed in week 2 against Jacksonville. I'll see the Colts and the Titans this week, and I think what is a really important matchup suddenly for 2 teams that are trying to stay afloat in their divisions. But I don't think you panic with those elite level teams. Yeah, they have too good of a track record, and they've got the quarterback.
And by the way, you're right. The Colts have forced more 3-and-outs than anybody in football this year, so their defense is better than expected. And I will not sit here for any positive kicker talk because we all know how much I despise them as human beings. So let's just move on from that.
I thought that was just a college thing, like you and I, Mark.
No, I hate them all.
If my son, your stance on college kickers.
If my son decided to become a kicker, I'd disown him. It's just that simple. My child. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about other play-by-play. For those who don't, Adam does NFL, but before there was ESPN The Ocho, there was Adam Amin calling wrestling and volleyball and everything else that nobody ever that's how much of a talent you are. But you did get to call on Fox the Yankee game at Yankee Stadium where Aaron Judge almost hit 61, and the cameraman fooled everybody in America thinking that ball was going to the Teterboro, for crying out loud. But listen, I give you credit because you stayed calm. You didn't you knew from your perch that it might not have gone out. You didn't overreact like the rest of us did. But what was that moment like for you, and how awesome was that being in the stadium? I mean, you have to get a little bit nervous knowing that ball goes in the air like, oh my God, this might be it.
Every time you connected with the ball, and that's how you are sitting in the crowd, or probably sitting at home, or if you're at the bar or whatever, you get up for it because you know what he's capable of. Every time he makes contact, he might obliterate it. So you had to be ready for it. I appreciate you saying that because I didn't want to go overboard unless I was 100% certain on it. The atmosphere of that place was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of because you guys are all TV and audio geeks and things like that, so I know I've got a little inside baseball for everybody else. But you know what what sound waves look like, that parabola where like you can hear it kind of going up, and the whole crowd, 45,000 people, are all fixated on one point, and they're all rising at the same time. And right when that pitch starts to get thrown, it just drops off, and it's like dead silence in relativity. So it was just so cool to be a part of that. And everybody was kind of feeling that same sense over the course of the night. Every time you come up, you got another at bat late in the game where he flew out to the track, and I think everybody was fixated, and that's what we saw in Toronto last night. And granted, he got walked 4 times for like the second time in his career. So we're seeing that, and nobody wants to be the one to give it up. He's gonna get there. He's gonna get 61, probably get 62, and we'll see the record. But every time he comes up from here until he does it, you're gonna feel that same thing, and the crowd is gonna feel that same parabolic feeling every time out, no matter where he is, whether he's at home or he's on the road. These final 9 games or whatever it's gonna be.
Yeah. Everyone's rooting for him at this point. He walked 4 times yesterday. Like, how did that even happen? I don't even know. It's wild to me. Adam, we so appreciate you coming on. I just looked up the Bulls Hawks schedule, December 11th. I'll be seeing you in person right here in Atlanta. I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much, and best of luck with the Colts Titans this weekend. That's going to be a fun game for you.
Thanks, my friends. I appreciate seeing you and talking to you.
All right, talk soon. Have a great week. Adam Amin, NFL and Chicago Bulls play-by-play announcer. Great stuff from him. Love chatting with him. Okay, before we get into our best bets of the days, I know, and the Pickswise 3-star play of the day, let's talk about Superbook Sports for a second, because Let's Bet It is presented by the one and only Superbook Sports. Go to superbook.com or download the app today. This season, we are all rooting for safeties. That is because Superbook Sports will give you a $50 bonus on each safety scored this season. All you have to do, place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or any total, and if there's a safety scored in those games, in any game on Sunday, like any game that's being played on Sunday, you get a $50 bonus. It is that easy. So visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Let's go, Superbook. Let's go safety, baby. Let's go to also Pickswise.com. Tell me, Zeno, who do we got for our 3-star play of the day on this Wednesday? Wednesday.
There is one Major League Baseball, a money line pick for the Cleveland Guardians. Go read that right up there by Kyle Lupus. You'll get all the information. Again, Pickswise.com, place to go for 3-star plays of the day.
I like it. We also got ourselves some 3-star play of the days. Yours is a nerfie. Mine is a pitching prop. Who wants to go first? Should we play rock, paper, scissors? Let's do it. 3.
Okay,
2,
here we go.
1. Rock, paper, scissors. I don't know if this works. I did paper. No, you just switched it. I'm going first. Okay. Taiwan Walker, over 4.5 strike. It doesn't work very well on this because of we have a second delay between the two.
Yeah.
It's okay. It works. Taiwan Walker, over 4.5 strikeouts. I got this at Superbook Sports, -130. So lay in 30 cents for it. It's a little juicy, but this is how confident I feel in it. He's been really good this season, and he's been really good against the Marlins this season, but that's not saying much because everyone's been really good against the Marlins this season. Still, though, he has a 4-0 record against Miami, a 2.23 ERA, a 35-6 strikeout to walk ratio, which last time I checked, that's pretty good. And that's over 5 starts and 32 and a third innings pitched. Now, the Marlins are finishing up the season under Don Mattingly. They haven't been great at hitting the ball, but the last couple of weeks, they've been striking out at a 24.9% rate. I also like Walker at Citi Field. Home cooking's been treating him well this season. He has a 5-1 record at home, 0.7 home run per 9 innings pitched. And the last time he went out up against Miami, he punched out one earned run over 7 innings pitched in that same game that he punched out 10 guys. I feel like he's just a hot pitcher, and he's going to take advantage of a team that's, 1, not very good offensively, and 2, they're just kind of down in the dumps. I feel like at this point, the Miami Marlins just want to get the season over with. They're 64-90. Are trying to push to the top of the NL East at this point. The Braves are right on their tails. I think they're actually tied right now at the top of the NL East for the NL East crown. And Walker knows he has to be solid in this game. They need this win tonight. They need to take advantage of this series against the Miami Marlins. So I like him going over 4.5 strikeouts, laying 30 cents for it. Again, he punched out 10 Miami Marlins players in the last start that he had against them. I feel like he'll be able to do it again, and he's doing it in front of a home crowd. So lock that in, baby. You also like no runs to be scored in the first inning between the Reds and the Pirates, two great offensive teams.
Yeah, you look at this. I want to get this out of the way early. A 12:35 start here in Pittsburgh between two of the worst teams in the league. So we'll take a no-run first inning at a moderate minus 122. You're talking about two teams that are bottom 5 in the league in first inning run scored percentage, and Pittsburgh is actually dead last in Major League Baseball in first inning run scored percentage. Now, as far as opponent first inning run scored percentage, Cincinnati, 9th overall in the league in opponent first inning run scored percentage. And Pittsburgh, while they haven't been great this year, they're better on the road. In fact, 9% better at home than they are on the road this year. It's 17th overall in Major League Baseball at home in opponent first inning run scored percentage. You get Luis Cessna against Bryce Wilson. It's a yuck pitching matchup. I just hope they're still asleep by 12:35 when this thing is first pitch in Pittsburgh here. So let's get the pain out of the way earlier. A no-run first inning between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
A noon 30 no-run first inning, just because we want to like get in, get out, get the money, and call it a day. I have to wait all the way until I don't even know what time the Mets game is on tonight. I didn't even check, but I like the Taijuan Walker over 4.5 Ks. You like no run scored between the Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates, two of the hottest offenses in Major League Baseball in the final 2 weeks of the season. Not, so we'll see what happens with both of those bets. Guys, that is it for us today. Follow us on Twitter, Mark Zeno, Lauren Jabara. Find us on Pickswise.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Let's Bet It, presented by Superbook Sports. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.